Welcome to the Soil Web Toolkit. I'm Claire and this is my husband David, and we wanted to make this video just to catch you up really with what the project is, our progress so far, and what you can expect for the rest of the year. So we're recording this in a really sunny front garden in June 2023. It's a really hot day today, isn't it? Absolutely sweltering. So we're not going to talk for too long, we'll probably melt. But the history of the project is that I got some funding for us to explore composting via a variety of different methods back in March this year, and we have been having a little look at what makes for good compost, what makes for fast compost, lots of different composting methods, and what might work in our front garden where we are now and in our back allotment garden as well. So we're really lucky in terms of where we live in these cottages that we've got these allotments over the road and attached to the cottages, which means that it's kind of a natural space for growing and experimenting. We've got some pet chickens there. And when we first kind of wrote up the idea for the project, it was about how we can introduce as much biodiversity as possible through making our own soil. So it is about making soil and using soil, but it's also about exploring garden waste, food waste, fruit and vegetable scraps, and that kind of idea of partnering with other members of the community and other people that live here in our village to try and make the project a success. So far we've invested in a larger worm hotel in it's kind of a larger scale kind of wheelie bin, and 2 Subpod stations. So Subpod is a particular brand of worm farm, so we've invested in 2 of those, and we've been working on filling those up and seeing what's happening and observing the whole thing. Mainly David, actually, not so much me, although I've really enjoyed seeing the project kind of come to life in terms of what might be possible longer term. And I think that's been the big lesson so far, that this isn't a quick win by any means. There are faster composting methods to use, but you tend to need a little bit more space than we have for those. The hot composting method that you can use requires quite a lot of physical input in terms of building the hot composting heap to the right size and turning it over and watering it and all that sort of thing. And when we first started the project, you weren't very well, were you? So we were like working out how to make a project like this work, but with limited resource and energy. We've got young children, we both work as well, so it was like, how can we make it work, and how can we talk about what it takes to make it work if you want to make your own compost at home. So do you want to talk a bit about the Subpods and the wheelie bin worm hotel and why we've gone for those 2 methods?
Yeah, the backstory is like I've been worm farming just sort of recreationally for, would you say?
Oh, since we lived here, because you got them delivered to the old kitchen, didn't you? You texted me and said there's some worms getting delivered today, and I was so freaked out. I was just like, what do you mean? What do I have to do? Do I get them out of the box? What do I do? So that was like 2015.
Yeah, and I'd seen the guy who introduced me, James, up at the Noth farm. I don't suppose he'd be watching, but he has a lovely YouTube channel. If we can link to that.
Yeah, we can link to that.
Yeah. He has, I don't know if you call it a farmstead, a homestead, I guess Americans would call it, but he has a good few acres of land where he can he grows produce not just for his family but to sell in the community, and it's all done on a permaculture basis. So permaculture is always looking at sort of maximising your resources, minimising any waste or any sort of energy leaks in the chain. So it's very environmentally sound. But that's on a bigger scale, and it seems to work, doesn't it? Like if you've got that bigger field, then you can have animals, which means more manure, which means the compost can be bigger. Bigger compost means more microbial activity and more heat. So everything kind of works on that larger scale, and we were interested, like, how does that work? We live on a terrace house, and most of you folks will have small house like us. You won't have that big farmstead set up. So how then does composting work on that scale? What does then that look like? So that's made us dive into exploring and just trying to like how could we then replicate that so that others can use not just what the textbook says about composting, but how does it practically work with a normal family or in a normal urban environment. So worm farming is great for that because they're compact. Some people even haven't met anybody, but some people have, when I've read books, they have them indoors, the little worm farms built into tables and things. There's no smell. They make some fruit flies when you lift the lid and stuff, but they're pretty, not like a normal compost can be pretty smelly, and it can be, because it's open, it can be rats and animals can be attracted and stuff, so you haven't, the worm farms
it's all self-contained, isn't it? That was one of the big things people were saying to us. Well, when we did the research for the project, people were saying the barriers to composting were smell and pets and time. So they were like the three key things people said. So because we knew that, we thought, well, there's no point us setting something up that doesn't address those three things. We know that those are people's three top challenges. So how do we address those challenges in the way that we compost?
The worm farming gets around time because the worms are working 24/7, so it's like you throw your scraps in and the worms are doing the rest, so it actually gets around that time factor as well.
And no pests because it's self-contained, and no smell because I don't really know why, but it just doesn't smell, does it? None of the worm farms have got a smell to them.
It's normally when oxygen's not getting in, then it goes anaerobic, the microbes goes putrid, but obviously the worms create oxygen as they go because they're tunneling and stuff, so it's just like this perfect system really.
Oh, we've lived here 8 years now, so we've done various different bits and bobs to the garden. We've planted in places, we've done things that don't work, that do work, things that are wrong, things that are right, and I think David and I see now when we're walking around the garden that soil must be really rich, that must be really nourishing the plants, because you can just tell by the way they've kind of bursted into life in certain sections. So because we've had pet chickens pretty much since we lived here, obviously there's all of the chicken manure that's gone into the garden, and then David's done various kind of composting methods over the years and brought Bokashi in, brought the soil in from the worm hotel. So it's all been going on slowly over the past sort of 8 years or so. And all we've done in this last few months is just try to kind of ramp it up and understand what we're doing. So we're kind of taking a step outside of what we've set up to then talk about it and to try and help you guys decide what's going to be the best setup for your space. So we're pretty happy with how it's going, aren't we? I mean, we're just keeping a check on it all, but the Bokashi's going well, the Subpods are going well. You've got the big urban worm wheelie bin there and the other larger one. And I mean, is that enough? Do we want more, or?
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it after all these years with Bokashi.
Bokashi, one of those.
It works whichever way you pronounce it, so it's all good. But that's another one where you don't get the smell because the food scraps aren't actually rotting. It's a process of fermenting, so you get like almost like a vinegary smell, which I don't know, it's not the most pleasant thing in the world, but it doesn't smell like things are rotting and going off. And it'll also speed up the process of the food breaking down, so it can go into the soil pretty quick. So that gets around a couple of the big sort of issues you are getting fed back into, isn't it?
Yeah.
Time and
I think you quite enjoy the process of doing it as well. I think that's important. So I definitely wouldn't have opted to compost. Like, I just was like, we don't need to do that. We'll just buy bags of compost. We'll get it delivered by the ton. That's fine. And actually, David's taught me about slowing down massively because I'm naturally quite a fast-paced person anyway. So there's the slowing down element, but there's the separating of things. Obviously when we buy stuff from the supermarket, like the cucumbers wrapped in plastic, the broccoli's wrapped in plastic, everything's wrapped in plastic. So any kind of bits and bobs of waste, the chickens can have some bits and bobs, but then the other bits, the potato peelings and the carrot peelings and the end of the broccoli, the end of the cucumber, whatever you've got, it can all go in the same place. So all you need is a countertop, and we'll make more videos about this, a countertop compost bin, and then it can go either into the Bokashi system or into the Subpod system or into the urban worm. So we're going to talk you through all the different methods and let you decide what you think would be the best one for you. But I think in terms of a daily routine, I mean, it's a nice thing, isn't it, to do?
think even if you're just getting rid of your coffee grounds or just something, one major bugbear, or just your fruit peelings or something, you know, rather than feeling like you're just another environmental chore to do, that hopefully it's like working for you, like, you know, rather than slopping the coffee grounds into the waste bin and I don't know, making a mess or something. You just have a countertop system and it's maybe a bit more efficient that way, and it just goes into the Bokashi, and Bokashi can feed into the Subpod. So the Subpod, the advantage of the Subpod is built into the planter. So where, like, literally where you grow your plants, you put this thing. It's half above the earth and half under the earth, obviously where the worms live. And the benefit of that is it's just in situ, and there's no more maintenance other than just adding your scraps. With the big wheelie bin setups, at some point you're going to have to separate the soil from the worms, and that is a bit like, there's no fast way to do that. It's a labour of love, really, because obviously you don't want to hit the worms, so you've got to go slowly, and you've got to make little piles, and the worms bury sort of further away from the sunlight, and then you scoop a bit off, and then the worms bury away from the sunlight. You wait 10 minutes, you scoop a bit off. So that can be a drawn out process, but that, to fill a full wheelie bin, that's going to take you a couple of years. So
And it just drops all the time, doesn't it, as they're sort of processing it?
Yeah, it's not like a job you're going to have every other week or even every other month. It's going to be one job once in a while. And if you like gardening, you probably like that sort of idea of just pottering and helping out. And
technically, you'd imagine once they've processed it all, they're going to move further up, and it will actually, after a really long time, just be soil when you pull out the bottom layer. That's what we sort of envisaged, didn't we, to start with?
Yeah, I'm hoping with the bigger one. So we start off with a small one. I forget what the litres is, but like the
stacking system one or the urban worm one?
No, I'm not about the 2 wheelie bin
Yeah,
ones.
so this one,
like a half wheelie bin size, and then the full sort of family of 4 wheelie bin size. Is that 240 litres?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, we can put the links in the notes, can't we?
Yeah, so I'm hoping the bigger wheelie bin, by the time that's full, the worms will have moved right the way up, and I'll be able to scoop out the bottom without pulling any of the worms out. I think the bigger one will work better for that.
So we'll do more update videos and let you know, but this was just really an introduction a couple of months in around what we've been doing and how things have been going. We've been observing where the opportunities are. So David and the kids picked up a load of grass from the field when the field had been cut at the end, and put some of that in with our chickens, put some of it in the worm bin, put some of it and made a bit of a hot compost heap. And we're also working in partnership with a local cafe to collect their coffee grounds and food scraps, and we're being very measured around how much we can do and how much we can process, and then what the impact of all that is. We've been quite inviting to just our neighbours to say, this is what we're doing, like if you want to add anything in, if it feels fun, feel free. And we want to teach more workshops on it all, but we're still learning ourselves. And I think really it's just about us being really open and transparent about the process of that, and saying that if we can, you can too. I think that's all I wanted to say, really.
Yeah, we could have like upscale, but it would mean buying a commercial composter for 2 or 3 grand, or a big cylinder thing, and you turn the handle and it all gets very hot inside there, which would have been great for us. But then how is that replicated? Like, nobody's going to spend realistically 2 or 3 grand on that composting. So, we would have been able to demonstrate, look how great we were turning all this waste into soil. But actually, it's not about that. It's about like just a very modest affair. And like, if we all do our little modest affairs in millions and millions of houses, that collectively is quite an impact. But yeah, it's not. We're trying to minimise work for people and trying to make it work for people. And yeah, I think if you've got a big garden job on, a big planting job on, there's no getting away from. You will have to buy soil in and what do you call it, planting mixtures and all that.
Yeah.
But in terms of keeping topped up and keeping microbial, that bacteria, the really living nutrients in there, one of the great things is that you get worm juice
Oh yeah.
that we siphon off. So
Worm tea.
worm tea. So and that's like almost weekly, isn't it? Or...
Oh, I mean, it's just all the time at the minute, the way that they're all going, and I'm just pouring it, and David's pouring it straight onto the roses, straight onto we've just had some peonies, and they've been like the biggest blooms we've ever had, and that is all just like perfect fertilizer for everything that you're growing, which is like a really lovely byproduct of the worm hotels. But also it reminds you that we do need to feed things. You know, we feed ourselves and we nourish ourselves, and we just expect the garden to crack on, but actually it does need some nourishment if we want to grow like the best stuff we can grow, I think.
Yeah, it needs some. Our space is quite wild, but at some point you have to manage. Like we want to work in harmony with our nature. You know, we want it to look after us as we look after her. And there's the extreme of like just block paving everything or astroturfing everything and just not having to touch a weed again in your life, sort of thing, or letting everything go completely wild and then not actually being able to get into your garden, not being able to enjoy the garden, let the kids run around and learn how to grow stuff is. There is a level of management involved, but it's lovely working with nature, isn't it?
I think so. And you know, we've not got a council garden bin, so here in Northumberland you pay an annual fee to have the council come and take away your garden waste, and they do actually have a process where they turn it into compost and reuse it, but we don't pay for that service because we've got the worm hotel. So all of the garden waste, if it's a tree branch, Dave's got a chipper, so he'll chip that and the mulch will go onto the plants. If it's anything else, it can get broken up and go into the worm hotels. Cardboard that comes in, you know, when you get deliveries and things like that, we can just rip that up and put that in the worm hotels as well. So yeah, it feels like interesting. You know, we're not opposed to having a council garden bin, but it feels interesting that we don't need one with a garden this wild and this, you know, big. It is a decent footprint of a size.
It's just, you know, it's the fuel of having a big lorry to rock up and take everything away, and that, you know, that's replicated for millions of houses up and down the country. Whereas if we're just reusing it on site, it's literally going back into your soil.
And the nourishment,
it just makes much more sense.
Yeah, so we'll leave it there for today. I hope it's been interesting. If you've got any questions about the project, the funders, what we're doing, if you want to see more specifics, let us know, because we're going to be unpacking the specifics as time goes on. And this was just an opportunity for us both to sit together. We don't get that much, and just update really on what it is. So we'll give you the link to sign up to the toolkit. You can be on the waiting list for that for when it's ready. But if you've got any questions, just drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you.